Okay, in this video I'm going to talk to you about making a slab built mug. There are going to be three different types of slab built mugs that you can make. There's one that is a straight sided mug and it looks like this. And you could use, if you wish, a template for that. Here's a straight template. The second type of mug that you could make is a big radius, and those look like this. And you could use a template like I have here, which has a gentle curve to it, or you could do a third type of mug which has an even tighter or smaller radius, and those look like this. And you would use a template that looks something like this one right here. Today for this demonstration, however, I'm going to show you how to make the straight sided mug, and then you can choose to make straight, big radius, or small radius. That's up to you. After you've got your clay wedged, you are ready to roll it out, and you want to roll out your clay into a nice slab. So you're going to use the thickness sticks, and remember that the sticks put together like this so that when you are rolling out your clay, the clay becomes no thinner than this, and it is consistent all the way across. So from this end of the clay to this end of the clay down here, it is the same thickness all the way. So I'm going to put these on either side of my clay. I'm going to take my rolling pin, and you want to make sure that when you are using your rolling pin that it is cleaned off. If it has chunks of clay that are stuck to it, then when you're rolling it out, you're going to have all these little divots and things in your clay, and you don't want that. So when you start to roll out your clay, you want to start in the center of your clay and press down and roll it out. Press it in the center and roll it out. You're going to do that maybe a couple of times in one direction. The reason you start in the center and roll out is because if you started on the end and rolled this way, the clay has a tendency to catch on the rolling pin and it'll wrap around the rolling pin. So you don't want to do that. You want to take it and start in the center and roll out, and in the center and roll out again. After you've done a couple of rolls, you want to pick up the clay and flip it over so that it does not stick to the canvas board and it spreads out more evenly. At a certain point, you'll be able to hear that you are hitting just the sticks as you are rolling out the clay. Now, once you have the clay all rolled out like this, you can do a couple of different things. If you have a template, you can use the template, and that's fine. If you don't have a template and you want to make your the sides of your clay mug a certain height and so on, that's perfectly fine. And what you can do is you can take a nice straight edge like these thickness sticks, and you can lay it down. I want to lay it down so that I'm not going to get any of this irregular stuff in there. So I could take, if I want, and set it right here. I know that in order to wrap around something or to make a diameter this big, I don't need a ton of extra clay here. For example, this template is only this long right here, so I don't need all of this clay here. And really, I could probably only use this much clay if I needed to wrap it around and make a cylinder like this. And you can see how much excess I have overlapping here. I would not need all of that extra clay there. So the reason I made this template larger though is because you might want to have a larger diameter for something, or you might need the excess for something else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my straight edge, I'm going to place this on here. I'm going to then use one of the needle tools, and I'm going to use it to cut off this extra clay. And I'll set that aside. So now I've got a nice straight edge here that I can use. And then if I want to, I can measure in how tall I want my mug to be. Now if I want a really tall mug, then I would measure from here up as high as I can. If I want a shorter mug, I would measure down a little bit, and then if I wanted a real teeny tiny height for my mug, I would have it even shallower. So if I wanted to, I could take this and I could measure up 4 inches. So I could set this down here and I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I could put a little mark right here. And then this is where a lot of people make mistakes. They don't put a second mark there to have something to measure against. So you could set this down and think that you're straight, but it's actually quite crooked. Or you could be too far in this way and it gets narrower and then things don't line up. So you want to have a second mark. You've got the first one right here. You want to take and measure another 4 inches. So you would set this down again and then go 1, 2, 3, 4 and put a little mark. And then you can line up those marks and then use your straight edge to cut it. Now this is good extra clay here. It's already rolled out the right thickness that we want and so on. So I am going to keep this because I might be able to use that for my handle and so on. So I'm going to just take this, I'm going to carefully pick it up and set this aside for right now. I know I don't need this extra clay up top here, so I'm going to come down a little bit more like this because I'm hoping that this will be enough for the bottom of my mug. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to set that aside for right now. So now I've got this long skinny piece of clay here, and I can do a couple of different things. I can just peel this up and I can curve and form this into the shape that I want it to be, and then I can cut this and put a bottom on it and so on. But with this being a little on the soft side and with it being straight, for the sides being straight like this, I'm going to use this soda can as a form to wrap it around. So if I were to wrap it directly on the can, it would end up sticking to the can and then I wouldn't be able to pull it off and it wouldn't work really well. So I'm going to take a piece of paper toweling and I'm going to wrap that around the can and tape it down. Take this, wrap it around the can, a piece of masking tape here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the bottom of the can with the bottom of the slab, and I'm going to gently and carefully roll this up onto the can like this. I can pick the rest of it up and now I can stand it up. I have way more clay than I needed. That's okay. We can use this for other parts. We can use it for the bottom and so on. We're going to need to put the two pieces of clay together here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and in order to make sure that everything lines up, see, I could cut it right here, but I could be off by just a tiny bit one way or the other. I might accidentally go too shallow and then it would be not quite close enough to bring together. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to overlap and cut through both layers, and then what's left over will line up perfectly. So I'm going to line this up. I'm going to use my little knife and I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut right in between there. I'm going to take off all this extra here and set that aside. I'm going to maybe use that for my bottom. Then I'm going to take out this little extra piece right here that came out. Don't need that now. Set that aside. And now these two pieces here line up perfectly. Always when attaching two pieces of clay together, you need to score and slip. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to take the slip from my table. I'm going to use my little wire scorer and I'm going to score up this edge, scratching up the surface. You want to scratch it up really well. Do the same thing with the other edge. Then I'm going to take some of the slip, brush that on, and I'm going to press these two ends together. And then I'm going to smooth out my seam. Make sure that you smooth out on the bottom as well and across the top there where the seam was. The next step is to put a bottom on. So I'm going to take one of these pieces of extra clay that we have here. We already know it's the right thickness. I'm going to set this right on top and make sure that that all lines up properly. Once I've got it all set on there, I'm going to take my knife again and I'm going to cut around the edge like that. I'm going to pull off the excess, set that aside. Now I have the bottom here, but I want to be sure and score and slip this, so I'm going to pop this off. I'm going to score up the surface. Do the same thing on the bottom side of the mug and then put slip down. Always put slip on when you're attaching two pieces of clay together. Place two pieces back together, press it down really well, and then blend your seam together. So now it has a bottom on it. The seams are together. The last thing that we need to do is to put a handle on it. There are three parts to your mug. There is the the walls or the sides of the mug, there's the bottom of the mug, and then there is the handle of your mug. What we're going to do next is put on the handle. So again, we have a piece of clay that's already the thickness that we want to work with. I'm going to use my thickening stick to help me create my handle. I'm going to set this on here, and I'm going to cut out a piece of clay that is much longer than it needs to be for the handle. You don't want your handle to be too thin this way, otherwise it's not going to be strong enough to be able to be picking up the mug. If it's too thin, it'll be very brittle. You never ever want to hold your mug by the handle before it has been fired. If you hold it while it is either wet or even just bone dry, it will probably snap off. So never hold your mug by the handle before it is fired. You want to make the handle about 1 inch thick for structure and strength. What I like to do is attach the handle along the seam here. That helps disguise the seam and makes it a little bit nicer in that area. We're going to attach our handle right on the top here, and then we're going to drape it down, and it looks like it could end right about there. You could make this curl back up or do other things. You could do other stuff in terms of decoration and so on. That's completely up to you and how you want it to look. I'm thinking that that's about where I want mine to end, however, and so I'm going to cut it off right about there, and I'm going to now be attaching the handle in 2 places, once up top here and one down at the bottom here. Always when attaching 2 pieces of clay together, yes, Mr. Stuck, score and slip. So the first place I'm going to attach, and I know that's going to be right there. I'm going to put a little mark here and here so I know where I need to score. I'm going to scratch up this surface. Same thing with the piece of clay that I'm attaching. Put a little dollop of slip, and I'm going to press that there. At this point, I'm going to take the can out of here. I don't really need it right now, and it's kind of getting in the way, so I'm going to reach my hand inside, and I slide the can out. You can even then take the paper toweling out. You don't need that anymore. And now you can blend your handle better into your mug. So I have the handle attached here. Now I need to attach it down at the bottom. So I will score and slip and then press the handle onto the mug and blend the clay together. Now, if your handle is loose or floppy like this and you don't want it to bend or break or sag while you're waiting for it to dry, you may want to take some paper toweling or something and crumple it up and place it inside the handle like this as a support, so it holds its shape the way that you want it to be on here. You also, underneath here, may want to put a reinforcing coil, and even possibly down here below as well. So you might want to take a very small piece of clay, once you are finished putting the handle on and so on, this is when you're going to want to start cleaning things up and making sure everything is blended together. You also want to make sure that your inner seam on the inside of your mug is also blended. You can see the seam that runs down through the inside here, all the way down through and around the base of the mug. So you can reach in with your finger as best you can to smooth that out. But if it gets down too far where you can't reach with your finger anymore, you can see how I've smoothed that out really well right there, but still down further beyond my reach, I can't quite get that. Then I would take another tool. I would take something like this perhaps. I would maybe take a tool like this. It has a nice smooth edge to it. And I would reach down inside here, and I would use that to smooth all the way around the bottom edge where the bottom and the side walls of the mug come together. So I would do that all the way around there as well. Once you have everything smoothed out on the inside, all your seams smoothed out, then you're going to want to make sure that you smooth out the whole mug itself and smooth out your surface so you don't have cracks or irregular texture. Remember, if this is something that you're actually going to drink out of, you don't want any sharp edges, especially around the rim. You want to take the time to smooth and blend everything out so it's got a nice clean edge with a nice curve to it so that everything looks nice and smooth and feels smooth. It doesn't have any sharp edges to it. And you can see the difference of what I've got going on right here. How smooth that is, how nice that is. The edge is getting nicer and smoother. I'm going to work my way all the way around the edge, all the way around the sides of the mug, smoothing everything out, blending it together, and then deciding what I'm going to do for texture and so on. I want to smooth out my handle so it's not rough and sharp to hold on to. I want to make sure that I have everything reinforced really well, put together well, shaped properly, put my reinforcing coil in here and so on, and blend everything out so that I have a nice mug when it's finished. And then you are able to decorate it however you want. The last thing that you absolutely have to make sure to do, because we're going to have a lot of mugs that are going to look similar in size and shape, is that you want to make sure that you put your name somewhere on the bottom. If your mug is really soft and pliable, like this one is a little bit like this, and you're afraid that it's going to collapse or bend, you could crumple up newspaper or paper toweling and place it inside there while you are still working on it. But if it's all set to go, you can set it carefully in your tote tray and it should keep its shape. So this is a straight walled mug. If you wanted to, instead, you could make the sides different. If you wanted to, you could have a smaller radius. So you would put these together after you've cut your slab, and your mug would look something more like this when it is finished, in that shape. Or a bigger radius, you could even have it be something like that, so it is not as sharp. Or once you've got it made, you can even curve or bulge out the sides. If I wanted to, I could take and I could curl this out a little bit. This top edge, if I wanted to, I could curl this out a little and give it some shape like that. I could bulge out the center here or do different things like that, or I could taper this in. And you want to add textures, details, patterns, add things to the surface, carve away things on the surface. Do not have it just be plain. I don't want just a plain straight mug. I want you to do something with this mug. Make sure that you are careful with your handle that it doesn't break off. Blend it well, smooth everything out, get it the shape that you want, and put some crumpled up paper toweling in there to help hold its shape. Your handle does not have to be this shape. You could make your handle a couple of loops, or it could curly Q. You could do whatever you want in terms of how you want the shape of your handle to be. That's up to you.